As far as pseudoscience goes, here's another kind of statement that you should also be watching for when it comes to these kind of quack practices or products. By law, they have to include what's called a disclaimer. In the Purification program, here is what they say. There are no medical recommendations or claims made for the program. The only claim is future spiritual improvement. The data contained herein is a record of researches and results noted. It cannot be construed as a recommendation for medical treatment or medication, and is undertaken or delivered by any individual on his own responsibility. What does future spiritual improvement even mean? What it means is that the only thing they are saying you're going to get out of this potentially life-threatening program is that at some point in the future, your soul is going to be happier for you having done it. Wait, what? Life-threatening? Did you say life-threatening? What I've said about flowery and ambiguous language applies to any kind of pseudoscientific nonsense that you may see peddled on TV, the internet, or other media. Watch for these and you will have a good heads up so you don't get cheated or conned. But since this video is talking specifically about Scientology's Purification program, I need to take a moment and warn you about the actual dangers of this. Because the Purification program is not just about taking some harmless vitamins or being bilked out of a couple of $1,000s. It actually is not founded in any kind of evidence-based science, and it could cause major medical problems to anyone who's doing it. The two key elements of the Purification program are taking megadoses of niacin and sweating for 5 hours a day in a sauna. It may surprise you, but neither of these activities are actually doing anything to detoxify your body of drug substances such as LSD or alcohol. The reason I can say this is because it's been well established that LSD and alcohol are water-soluble substances, which your body completely rids itself of within just a few hours of ingesting them. This has been known about for decades, and if Hubbard had done any real research, he would have known that. Instead, he claims to have had a conversation with a Portuguese doctor about fat deposits found in dead people, and somehow figured from this that drugs and chemicals are permanently stored in fat cells in your body. There is no evidence in his materials that Hubbard did any further experimentation or gathered any other evidence to back up his claims. Is that good science? Just to point out an obvious example of why this is ridiculous, when a person is doing the Purification program, they're taking doses of vitamins every day that far exceed the doses of LSD or marijuana a person usually takes to get high. So why don't those vitamins get lodged in the fatty tissues of the body and stay there forever? According to Hubbard's theory, wouldn't it make sense that if a chemical like LSD was being stored in your body forever, that a chemical like ascorbic acid, or cholecalciferol, or a substance like retinol would also be stored forever too? Why would it only be recreational drugs and harmful toxic substances that the body would hold on to? The truth is that there has never been any evidence that drugs stay in your body forever. Drugs are simply chemicals, and the human body is extremely good at breaking down chemicals and ejecting them when it's done using them. That is what digestion and metabolism are all about. Millions of years of evolution have made our bodies quite good at it. Sure, there are some people who have abnormalities and problems with their metabolism, but those are the exception and not the rule. It's a commonly believed myth that all cells in the body are replaced every 7 years, but that's not true. What is true is that cells die off and get replaced, and different kinds of cells deteriorate at different rates. According to a 2008 study done in Sweden, every year 10% of your fat cells die, no matter how fat or thin you are or how much weight you're gaining or losing. And every year those cells that die are replaced with new fat cells. So if the old fat cells did contain LSD or other drug toxins, they don't, but if they did, they'd be naturally replaced out anyway. And that's science. On the Purification program, niacin is taken in doses as high as 5,000 milligrams a day. Hubbard observed that niacin can create a red flush and deduced incorrectly that this must mean that radiation was being discharged from the body. Again, if he had done any real research to find evidence for his pet theory, he would have discovered that the flush niacin produces is due simply to the fact that it dilates blood vessels. That flush is just a side effect. Niacin is used in much smaller doses to actually treat high cholesterol. He also would have found out that you can overdose on niacin, and if you do, the following can occur. Severe skin flushing, combined with dizziness, rapid heart rate, itching, nausea and vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea. In addition, a person on the purification program is put into a sauna, where the temperatures can be as high as 180 degrees, and they're encouraged to stay in there for as long as they can stand it. What can that do? Well, here are the symptoms of heat exhaustion. Heavy sweating, pallor, muscle cramps and muscle pain, fatigue, weakness, dizziness and lightheadedness, headache, nausea. If not treated, a person could then experience heat stroke, which includes the following new symptoms: rapid heart rate, difficulty breathing, loss of coordination, confusion and restlessness, seizures, unconsciousness. Now, if someone were indoctrinated to believe that they were going to experience drug trips or flashbacks in the sauna, could they mistake some of these dangerous and even life-threatening symptoms of heat exhaustion and heat stroke for a drug trip? Of course they could. And the result of that could be disastrous for their immediate and long-term health. If these are not handled properly, it could even result in death. Even if nothing bad happened and they recovered from these symptoms, they could still mistakenly think they had just run out some kind of drug from their body, when in fact, they simply overheated themselves. The people who deliver the purification rundown in churches of Scientology are not required to do any medical training of any kind. The only materials they are required to study are those written by L. Ron Hubbard. Should heat exhaustion or heat stroke symptoms appear, they too could mistake these symptoms for drug trips or flashbacks, which is what they expect to see. And they could even send a person experiencing these symptoms back into the sauna to run out the drugs. How do I know this? Because one of the jobs I used to do when I worked for the Church of Scientology was delivering purification rundowns. I realize now that I had no idea what I was doing.